Welcome back to Homebrew Terrain. It's been a little while. A lot of while. COVID did some really nasty things, but unfortunately it also made me go back to work full time, which I wasn't overly enjoyed about, but it turned out okay in the end anyway. Welcome back to Homebrew Terrain.
Hey, my name is Aaron, and welcome to Homebrew Terrain.
Now, a lot of you wanted the Cursed City box set. Unfortunately, it wasn't available for a lot of people. Today I'm going to show you how to build your own. The set itself contains books. Okay, that's easily, deal withable. And it comes with models. Okay, you can proxy models from just about anywhere to make this work. And it comes with these cardboard tiles. Now, these cardboard tiles are pretty essential to the way the game plays. You need them to move your little duders around on the board, right? Here we have a tile from Games Workshop. Here we have a tile that I made myself. Out of cardboard and just, cardboard. An Amazon box, waffles, frozen waffle box. A little bit of dirt and sand and Elmer's glue. That's what I used to make this. And people think, oh my gosh, it's so expensive, it took a lot of time. No, it didn't take very much time and it doesn't take very much money. Models can be proxied, tiles can be made, rules can be rewritten. The entire set can be made relatively inexpensively, and I'm going to show you how. So as you can see, my work area is a complete mess. That's mostly because I'm working on the kitchen table. After COVID came and went, okay, so it's still around. But after COVID, everything I did was kind of here on the kitchen table. So I have to kind of set up, do some stuff, and then break it all down before dinner time and or the end of the day. So as you can see, I've got a lot of stuff going on here. But let me go ahead and start from the beginning. I'm going to show you how to make the tiles. And we're going to start off by making these kind of tiles today. Eventually, we'll work our way up to making things much more decoratively. Hoping that eventually I can teach you how to add extra elements to the game. So like extra walls, buildings, multiple levels. We can actually take this game to an entirely new level. I'm going to take your Cursed City box set and I'm going to explode it into something amazing. Or you can take Cursed City box set from scratch and still have something amazing. So, here we go. Okay, so as you can see, my work area here is a classic hot mess. Which is, typical for what I do and how I work. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start from the beginning. I'm going to take you from a piece of cardboard off of a cardboard box, and I'm going to walk you through to the point where you get this tile that looks very similar to this. Now this is the first set of tiles we're going to be making. The next set of tiles will probably be the ones that look more like this. Alright, and I'm going to hold off on adding the terrain features and things like that because I think with what I want to do, I'm going to create the terrain features separately so that I can move them around on any tile I want to, and or also they'll be more 3D than what you see here because this is just a flat tile. Now, in the traditional game here of Cursed City, the actual terrain features themselves do very little or nothing at all to the game, except for maybe they end up being like search points or things like that. But I think we can do better, and maybe we will. But right now, we're going to stick to just the regular tile, and I'm going to show you how to make that first. Then we're going to move into more advanced tile making, and then we'll move into terrain features, and then we'll add whole new levels of play to the game. Just because, why wouldn't we? So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut one of these lips off this box using a pair of scissors. And I'm just going to cut it off the box, and it can be any piece of cardboard. It doesn't make any difference at all. So when you're done cutting that off, what I did was I measured out, in this particular case, this is just the corner piece of a cardboard lid, right? So save you having to watch me cut it out, unless you really want me to, and then I'll go back and do that. Just leave it in the comments below, down there somewhere. Then what we have here is I measured out every square on the actual game tiles. They're 1.5 inches. So there you go. So now you know that they're 1.5 inches. You have 1.5 inches. So I measured out I drew out the squares on the tile. So in this particular case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's 6 right there. So we have 6 squares on this tile, And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use this waffle box. It's the frozen waffles that my son likes to eat. And then what I did was I ended up measuring out as many squares as I could, like this. And I will end up gluing these on to here like this. But before I glue them on, I will trim them up so that they look more like this. So as I glue them on there, I'll glue them on with all these little grooves and nasty breaks and cuts and stuff. And that's where you see the red, or the blood, or I guess is what that's supposed to be, that's flowing through the streets in this lovely town of yeekiness. Anyway, so that being said, let's go ahead and get started with that. I'll show you how that works. So we start off with a tile like this. I like to cut it through, instead of trying to make it organic looking, I like to cut it in like broken jags, like it's a piece of broken tile. So then you get a little cut like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across where, see how it comes down at the joint of the curve, and then just kind of cut another one out like that further. So like that. And that way I have some kind of a groove in there. And I can do this, again, you can do it as much as you want or as little as you want. And there's merit to doing both. This tile here, you'll see that there's a lot of bricks in here and there's very little blood, right? And there's very little dirt, sand, or whatever. It's like this one here where there's very little bricks and there's a lot of sand and stuff. This is not a uniform piece. Some of them have more bricks, some of them have less. Alright, are we there? Okay, cool. Okay, then what we do is we just kind of continue on in that vein, like this. So, like that. I'm going to call that good. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our tile. See our tile? Ooh, look at how pretty that is. And again, it's just a piece of cardboard from the lip of a box. Alright. Then I'm going to make sure that this side here with the waffle part on it, this is the shiny, slick side. It doesn't hold paint as well as the flat cardboard side, or the open cardboard side. So this one's been printed on. This one hasn't been printed on. Printed, not printed, printed, not printed. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the glue on the printed side, because eventually that will make it hold better, and then the painting will become much easier later on. So I'm just putting the glue here on the tile piece like this, and it doesn't have to be fancy or pretty or even nice. Because again, this is a really junky city full of really bad stuff, so we can do that. Now, there we go. We're going to stick this on here. And if you want to be kind of cool with it, you can make it so that the cracks and stuff kind of line up like I did here. So it looks like, I'm not making problems here. So you can make it look like the cracks kind of line up from tile to tile. But again, you have to be able to delineate. That's a big word, delineate. Woo. You have to be able to make it clear which tiles are which, because these are the spaces that your pieces are going to move on. So you want to do that too. Now also, another thing that's really cool that I was thinking about with these is that one of the things you could do, if you really want to, you can make it so that they all line up together and that they all match together like this, so that you can put them together in a giant matte piece. So like you could do War Cry or whatever on something like this. You just lay it out in a giant table, which we'll be able to do when I'm done. But for now, we're just going to stick with this, and I'm going to continue showing you. Okay, so now what I do, because I am a particular individual, as you squish this down on here, you'll see that all those little cuts that you made, the glue is getting inside of that, and I want it to. I want it to be really neat. So I have a tool that's very much like this. I got this tool at the, like a craft store. It was like Michael's Craft Store or something. Anyway, it cost me like, I don't know, $5 for a box of different tools, and this was one of the ones that came in there. And I just use this to scrape off the glue onto my hand here, because why wouldn't I? But the most important part of this is that I can actually make it so that this goes into here like this, and I can just wipe that off into there, and it gets all the glue out of the tiny little places that the glue will clog up. And later on, that will actually serve much nicer when you go to put the red paint in here. You'll see that it doesn't clog up those holes as much. So there we go, and that's how you put that tile on there. How cool is that? Are you excited? I'm excited. And then the coolest part of dealing with glue is you get to like rub it all off like this, and then it gets all bally, and you get to like peel it off your skin like it's, yeah, okay, whatever. All right, on to making the bricks. The waffle box. This is another thing we're gonna do here with the waffle box. So there's the tile that we just made. Yay, okay. This is the waffle box. Now, it doesn't have very solid or good edges here. You can use that if you want to, but I don't like it that way. I want mine to be much smoother. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my ruler, and I'm gonna take my magic mermaid pen of awesomeness that I got from the dollar store. And I'm going to draw this lovely line, because lines are good, we like lines. And now I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm just going to trim off the end piece here, so that I now have a much better line of to work with. And now I have a nice clean edge to work with. Now, each one of my bricky bricks that I have here, I very carefully measured. So that, no, I'm just kidding. I just hand cut each one of them individually, and they're all completely different. I mean, honestly, I think they were like, they're all roughly, oh, let's see. Actually, I measure these. So if you look on an American ruler, we got, it's two little hashi marks, and that's the official measurement, by the way, hashi marks. These are hashi marks. Now, if you're in Europe and you have European measurements, and these actually have numbers that really mean something important, but then if you're in America and we use really dumb measurements that are really, did I mention that they were dumb? They're dumb. And so, yeah, knowing that they're 1/4 or 1/16 or 1/100th or a quarter or whatever, but the fact of the matter is, it's just stupid. Our measurement system is garbage, and I just said that out loud. There you go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over here with my ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and measure out 2 hashi marks. So there is my 2 hashi marks, and then I'll come to the middle section here and measure out said 2 hashi marks, and then I'll come to the top section here, and I will measure out said 2 hashi marks. Look at all this hashi marking. You're like, what are you doing with hash in there, boy? And then from there, I will draw another line of lineliness. Ooh, look at all my lineliness. And there we go, down there. And then I'll draw like thusly. And there is my thusliness. Now, each one of these bricks is, yeah, I don't know, I'll find a good one, because they're all different widths, or lengths, I should say. They're all different lengths, which is actually kind of good, and I like that. And we're going to cut them all up and smack them all around anyway. So, mostly they are about 1/2 inch. So, I'm just going to go to here on my first one here. I'm just going to start marking out 1/2 inch as I go down here. And the reason I'm doing this is because it'll give you kind of a uniform idea of how many bricks you can pull out of one of these little strips. I didn't use the F word on this video. That's terrible. Little kids watch this show. Not that I'm gunning this for little kids, because, man, the Cursed City gets dark. Don't you think? Geez, there's some really creepy, horrible stuff that happens in this game. So, yeah, if you're letting your kids play this game, it's like, damn, you rethink your parenting strategy. Because, no, I'm just kidding. My kids totally played stuff like this when they were little. That's why they're so messed up these days. Parent of the Year. Okay, so there you go. Now I've got this line. So you see the line with all the little marks on it? That's neat. Okay, then I'm going to take this bad boy here, and I'm going to cut it along the line. How exciting is that? That's just amazing. Don't you love it? I love it. We all love it. Okay, moving on. And boom, there it is. Ciao, right? And then I'm going to come to here, and I'm going to go bang. And that first one that I cut off is actually too short, but I don't care because I'm going to use it anyway. And I don't want to cut these too hard because I'm going to throw these little clips everywhere, these little clippings. And I don't want to do that because I want them to be not on the floor and against the wall and everywhere else for that matter. So there we go. And there it is. I got a bunch of bricks now to use for that tile. Okay, so now for the hard part, and I do mean that in the nicest possible way. What we're going to do is we're going to take this bad boy here, and we are going to quite literally lay each piece of brick that we cut out. We're going to do it individually on here, so that way we can lay them in funky ways and make it as custom as we possibly can. So bear with me whilst I show you how to do said thing. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take the first brick that we cut out. Look how cool that is. And we're going to go again to the printed side. So the printed side is face down always. Always the printed side is down. Okay. And then we're going to take this first brick and we're going to brick it up. Break it up, little darling, break it up. And I just use this little tool here to squish it down. And because I'm just like that, I scrape the glue away. Because why wouldn't you? Of course, you have to ask yourself the question, why don't you use less glue? And because the answer is, I don't want to use less glue. I just have a big pile of glue. Because why wouldn't you? That's the thing, I guess. Alright, moving on. See, get that glue off there. And so the very first glue brickety brick of brickety bricketliness. I don't even know if you can see this because the lighting in here is absolutely terrible. But that's the very first brick right there. And then I'm going to take the next one, boop-a-doo, like this, and do the exact same thing. And I'm going to do this a whole bunch of different times. And whenever I put a brick over the area that I created that little groove for the blood later on. Yes, I'm going to go through here and correct that. Hold on a second. I will show you how I fixed that problem. So here we go. I've got another brick right there. So now you want to leave a little bit of a gap between the two bricks. And this is why I scraped the glue out of there. Because I want there to be a little gap right here. Otherwise, when I go to paint it, it's not going to have the same effect. You'll notice that I have gaps in between the bricks here, and when you put the Agrax Earth Shade in there, it really makes them pop. So that's why you want to have a little bit of spacing in there. Okay, now we're going to go on to other stuff. So I'm going to take this here. I'm going to use this piece of brickage. Now, if I wanted to put this brick here, you'll see that, if you can see very carefully, there's actually the blood groove. That's what I'm going to call it, because that's what you have in a sword, right? A blood groove. Okay, so this blood groove right here, this little area that I cut out here, I can't just put a brick over that. Otherwise, what's the point of cutting it out? That was dumb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the brick on there, and then I'm going to kind of cut with the little scraper tool here, show you where exactly it is going to be. So I'm going to then pull that off of there. My specialty tool here, because normally I could just use tweezers or whatever. My fingers don't like to do that kind of stuff. So, boom, I cut the brick so that it's much smaller than it was. And now I'm going to do the same thing with that. I'm going to take my Elmer's glue, and I'm going to stick that right where the sun don't shine. No, I'm going to put that right here. Boom. So that the groove right here, I don't know if you can see it, and move it up here. So the groove right here, it stops where the brick is, right? So there's still a little empty space right here, and then the brick comes right up to where the groove is and stops. And there's no glue getting down inside there. So then I'm going to come back here and grab another piece of brick. And yes, you're absolutely right. This is a tedious process. I particularly enjoy this because I find it enjoyable to do each one of these tiles individually as its own kind of model, right? And then I kind of make each tile look the way I want it to kind of express an overall feeling. And then when you go back and you put them all together, it looks pretty freaking amazing. Especially considering the fact that this, so far, outside of the Elmer's glue, has cost me absolutely nothing. I mean, you can't argue with nothing. So I'm going to continue putting the bricks on and the tiles onto all of these, and I will show you where we're at once I get that all done. Because otherwise you're going to watch me put tons of these little things on, and it will take us hours to do. And nobody wants that. Okay, so here we have the final product, like I was saying, laying the bricks, whatever. So we start off with something like this. We cut out the little shapes, and then we add the bricks to it there, and then this is what the bricks look like when they're done. The next step to get it to look more like this is going to be to add sand and dirt. So now this is all basically just sand that I got from the beach in Seaside, and then it's also going to be like the gritty stuff is just a bag of stuff that I got from the dollar store like I don't know, a long time ago. It's the same stuff that I've been using on all of my bases and everything else from all of my models. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one here, and then I'm going to use the special tool that I got here. You can use a toothpick or even just glob the stuff on if you want to. I like to do it more specific and to keep it more organized. So the reason I do that is because if you look on here, you can see like I don't want the grit to fill up the little spaces that I created for the blood and for the bricks themselves. So the way I do that is I come through individually on the bricks, and I very specifically put a dab of glue down like this, just in the places where I'm going to want the dirt and the sand, like that. So nothing too exciting on that particular piece especially. But then what I'll do is I'll come back here with my tool like this, and I very simply work it into the places that I want it to be in, and I make sure that it's not in the places that I don't want it to be. So like in this case, that I get it, put it right here, just kind of work it around a little bit. And again, this particular tile piece right here isn't going to have very much on it at all. So then what I do is I hold it over the cup like this, and I just carefully sprinkle some of this on there, like so. And then you just tap it off, as you do. And then you'll see that I have the sand on there like this, and I'll go through and see how each tile or square has to be a specific number, or like a specific place. So as you look on here, you'll see that there's actually four squares down, and then there's 4 squares up, and then you get the idea. Anyway, so I want to make sure that I scrape all the sand and anything out of there that might stop that delineation or that separation of those squares. We can correct it with paint later on, but I kind of just want to do it now, help that process along. And I just work the grit down into the tiles where I want them to be. The other important thing about this too is that I don't want the grit to, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but I don't want the grit to stick up off of the tile very far, because I don't want to end up having too much of what's called like wobbly model syndrome. Like the cool part that you'll see with the tiles is that there's all this stuff, I mean, that's all over them, and they can just kind of throw that on there however they want to as far as the picture is concerned, because your model is just it's a flat piece of paper. So no matter what they put on there, it's flat, right? But you know, you think about that when you're building something like this, everything that you put on there is 3D, and it's going to affect how the model moves across it. So you want to come through and just kind of tamp this stuff down and make sure that it's not sticking out. Like, see these little pieces that I pulled off there, were actually sticking out of the model. So what I want to do now, again, is just go through and make sure that there's no gritty bits in the separation parts, or the lines, I should say, the lines that stop the spaces. So like right here and right here, I want to stop that from happening. And then I'm just going to do that through the entire piece. So for each square, I'm going to go through and do that. And that's what I'm going to do. So here's, watch me do it. Yay. I think it's funny because a lot of this stuff I actually fast forward, and you guys don't get to hear what I said, and or I just cut it entirely. I think with the sand too, in a lot of this, less is more. You know what I mean? Some of these are going to have more on there than others, but like if you look at this particular tile here as an example, you see like this particular tile right here has hardly any on there, and it looks pretty cool. And then of course you have this one here where there's just a lot of grit on there, and that also looks cool in its own way. But I think that if you were to do like the whole thing as like one or the other, it would look a lot different. It wouldn't be as cool, I guess. It's just my way of thinking. like that. That looks nice. That looks very nice. I like it. Anyway, I'm going to do that to the rest of this. So you don't have to sit here and watch me do it. Again, here is the finished piece. I'm just going to go outside now, and I'm going to throw a little bit of white primer on it. And then I'm going to come back in and show you how to paint it. Okay, so here we have it. The completed piece, ready for painting. Let me get all the paints ready that we're going to use here. Because, again, I'm kind of painting in a Turkish prison. So, let's go ahead and get these ready for you here. Let me show you what I use to paint this stuff up with. Okay, there you go. So now we're going to start it again. You ready for this? It's actually a really simple process. You're just going to wash the whole thing in achromatic blue. Then we're going to highlight it with the dark green, and then we're going to hit it with a gray, and then it'll be done. So let's do this. Do this. Okay, so you're going to get your sloshy splashy brush, and you can do it with a bigger brush if you want to. We're going to open up the achromatic blue here, and I'm probably going to have to go out and buy some more of this stuff before we're done, because I use a lot of it. Achromatic blue has ended up being one of those colors that I was like, meh, I'll probably use it, and then I end up using it on everything. Okay, so this gives it the lovely blue effect, and as you can see, all I'm going to do is just smack it on with a little bit of splorching and splorching. There you go. Boom. Oh wait, there's another color that I forgot to mention that we're going to use. After this, and then the dark, we're going to use Agrax Earthshade. I always forget about that one because it's an earth shade. It's not really a paint. And yes, I get it on my fingers and I don't care. See how well that does? See how it brings out the recesses of the tiles? They look fantastic when you do this. I loved it. And I find that the darker you can make the areas where the blood's gonna go, the better. I mean, I'm not really sure that that's blood. I think it's more like a red highlight. That's what I'm gonna call it. It's a red shadow area. Yeah, that's it. It's shadow. It's not blood. And then I'm just gonna tip it this way so all the achromatic blue runs down the tile. And there we have it. There is the finished piece. It's still sopping wet from this, but what we're going to do now is we're going to let this bad boy dry up a bit. And once it's dry, I'm going to go back through and I'm going to add a little bit of the what is this? That says Aramon. Aramon blue. It's basically just a teal and then a dark teal. So if you don't have the GW paints, you could totally do this, getting like a teal color like this one here, and then just adding a bunch of water to it, and then just splorching it over the whole thing. And then getting a dark teal, or just adding some like a dark brown or a black to the teal color that you're using to create the ink or the wash, and then just kind of mix it into this until you get kind of a more grayish teal color. And then you're going to use that to dab onto the areas that are all the grit, if you will. And then when you're done, what we're going to do then is we're going to use some Agrax Earthshade. Now you can do the same thing by making dirt, which is in some video that I have on my channel here. It's one of the other videos. I show you how to make dirt using black and brown and red, and you make dirt and it looks really good, and you can just use that as the Agrax Earthshade. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to come along here and we're going to use this lovely gray color that I have. Now this isn't actually a gray color that you buy from folk art. I just took this color and I mixed white into it, and I got that. So this is what we're going to use to highlight it and do what we need to do there. And so you'll see that when we move on to the next color. So here we go. Okay, great. So here we have it. The achromatic blue has now been fully applied and is completely dry, except for in all the places where it's not, because I'm totally too impatient to let that happen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the Aramon blue here, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint that straight onto the places where the gravel is. I'm going to go ahead and also dab it into the darker recesses of the model. Let me show you. So we get a little bit of glomp on there like this, and I'm just going to come through and I'm going to go ahead and just paint it right into here like this. I'm going to try to get as little of it as I can on the bricks or the open area, like the big open areas. I don't want to get too much of that on the bricks, because I want the Agrax Earthshade to really come out on those. But like in the under areas, I put it there, or in the places where I can really just slurp it on like this. And you'll see that it has like a really nice effect to it, and that'll really make it pop when the Agrax Earthshade jumps on it. So, and then we'll do some dry brushing on that, and it'll make it look even better. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that all up here, and again, to save you guys the pain of having to watch me paint this all up, I'm going to go ahead and jump right to the finished part of it. Okay, here we have it. I went ahead and put on all the Aramon blue onto there, so that's what it looks like now. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my bigger brush here, and I'm going to apply a healthy dose of Agrax Earthshade. Again, if you want to go ahead and make dirt or mud in the other kind of paint, you can do that too. Agrax Earthshade works exactly the same way. And in fact, sometimes when I'm done with the Agrax or it's running low, I'll just go ahead and fill it up with the other one. But again, I'm just going to use this to do exactly what I did with the Athematic Blue. I'm going to use this basically to darken up all the recessed areas of the model, or the tiles I should say. And you're going to see that just kind of running around here. I'm not going to apply it really hard on the surface of the bricks, but I will drop a dark splorch into the recessed areas and kind of work that outwards. I do that because, again, I want the darker areas to be thicker and heavier, and then the non-so-darker areas are going to be less so. I mean, that should be pretty obvious. This isn't like rocket science or anything. And there you go. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to add the Agrax Earthshade here. And then just over the whole thing. Just splorch it over the whole thing. And then in the end, the last step here is we're going to go ahead and just dry brush this with the gray. And I'll show you that when I'm done with that. And then I take that back. The last step is when we add the blood. Alright. And here we go. This is what it looks like with the Agrax Earthshade. It's still wet, so it's kind of got a lovely reflection on it, but that will go away as soon as the Agrax dries. And then from there, the second to last step is to dry brush it with the gray that I created. Looks like a light gray, almost white, but light gray. And then after that, we just use the Blood Angel Red to splorch in the blood parts of it there, and then it's playable. Now, what I do, like with what I did to kind of like a finishing thing that I do, is I'll take a little bit of black and kind of delineate the squares so you can see where it's a little, like each square is there individually. And you can do that specifically if you're playing like these kind of Hero Quest / Warhammer Quest games, where you need to have specific squares for your little duders to walk down. And then, or if you wanted to, you don't have to delineate anything. You can literally just create tiles, or even just entire base pieces where, you know, you put it all together into a giant like war cry, or you could use it to create a tile map for Mordheim, or you know, whatever, Infinity, I don't care. You can even tip it up and turn it into a wall, you know, like a brick wall, if that's what you want to do. And then you don't have to delineate anything that way either. But I like to do it this way so that I can use these as the tile set for my Cursed City box set. I'm going to use these like crazy because they just look awesome, and they feel awesome, and they create some really cool effects. And that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna show you how to do that, finishing it up here once for this all dry. The hardest part for this is really just waiting for it to dry. And the reason that's hard is because normally you just hit it with a hairdryer and it would dry that way, but I really want the pooling. See how it kind of pools up in certain areas and it stays in other areas? I love that, and I want that to stay that way. And if I hit it with a hairdryer, that kind of blows it all out and it kind of gets homogeneous. And so I don't want that homogeneity. Is that a word? Is that homogeneity? Hermongeny? Is that like it's like a game, right? Like Jumanji. Anyway, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna wait for this to dry. It'll take me a couple of hours. I may even have to finish this tomorrow, but we'll see. And so yeah, I'll be back here to dry brush this. For me, it could be a few hours. For you, it's probably just gonna be right now. And here we have it. The Agrax Earthshade is dry completely. How cool is that? That it only took you a split second to make that happen when it took like, I don't even know how many hours for me. Anyway, so the next step here is really simple. We're just going to dry brush. And you've seen a bajillion tutorials on how to do dry brushing, and I'm not going to go over it again. I even went over it once before on this channel, so find it or whatever. Dry brushing. So I'm going to take this color gray. It's like a light gray, and I'm gonna come over here and just dry brush the entire piece. So bear with me for a second here. Wiping off the paint, and we just come over to here. I'm gonna try to do it in a place where you can see it. It's hard to do this with the camera at a weird angle, and I'm just gonna go ahead and dry brush like this, and it's gonna bring out the highlights of this entire area. And you'll have to, you know, get your brush wet several times before you get it to the consistency that you like, but that's kind of where we're going with this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up dry brushing over the entire thing. So like this. It's a lot easier for me to do this when I can see it. Try to do it on camera so you can see it. And as Duncan will tell you, with dry brushing, a little bit goes a long way. You want to start off with a little bit and then kind of build up your layers in the areas that you want it built up. It's better than kind of splorching paint over everything at once. Like that. See, my hands are so pretty. I'm sure it's fun for you guys to watch my knuckles wiggle in front of your camera. And then you go back through and just kind of add more highlights to the areas that you want to pop. And if it ever gets to the point where you're adding too much highlight or you don't like the way it turned out, you can always throw a little more Agrax or shade back on the top of it. It'll dull it back down. Alright, so I'm going to dry brush the whole thing and come back and show you what that looks like, and then we'll add the red and be done. So there we have it. I went ahead and dry brushed the whole thing. And it's all set and ready to go. So now, if you wanted to not add the blood here, you don't have to. But I like it because I think it adds an extra layer of ambiance. So what we're going to do now, we're going to not let it stick on your finger. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this stuff. Blood Angel Red. It's a contrast paint. And it goes on just like an ink wash. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get my little fine brush here. This is my fine brush. Anyway, I'm going to use my brush and I'm just going to basically paint it in. So I'm going to get my brush nice and saturated. And then I'm going to find the places where I had cut out those holes originally. And I'm just going to very carefully use my brush to draw the contrast paint down inside those little areas that I had originally created. Now, if it gets a little bit on the sides or whatever, it's okay. It looks just as cool. But if you do need to clean it up, you can do so with any of the number of paints that you used before. Usually, I like to clean it up with the just the light gray. Just touch it up. Just be really, really careful about how you paint it in, and it'll be just fine. See, like I got a little extra right there. I'll probably go back and kind of clean that up a little bit, or maybe I won't. You know, it could be like blood splatters. So that's kind of what it looks like. And when it dries, it looks really neat, and it will look ta-da, exactly like this. And there we have it. Oh, tiles! Yay for tiles! And so this is how you create the tile for the first part of the box set. Now, there's a lot more to this, and in the next coming videos, I'm going to do a series of them where we're going to make new tiles for each different type. So, for instance, you'll see that this has a really fancy room in it, and there's lots of cool stuff going on. Well, I'm actually like to create that room. I think it'd be kind of cool. And the same thing with like this little raised platform thing right here. The stairs are a little bit funky, and they're going to be a little interesting, but I think we can do some cool stuff with that too. So I'm going to go ahead and finish painting this. I'll show you what it looks like at the end, and we'll throw some models on it, and you'll see what it looks like.
Yo, my hair looks great in this. Look at
Look like
that.
Ronald McDonald.
Shut up.
Ronald McDonald had a love child with magenta from Blue's Clues.